Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to a special Tuesday night edition of NoDQ Live. I'm having a few technical difficulties. Hopefully you guys can see the video okay. This video is going live on facebook.com/AaronRift. The on-demand version will be up at youtube.com/AaronRift NoDQ. SmackDown just wrapped up, a big angle to close out the show. But before I talk about SmackDown, I wanted to address the situation in TNA right now. Just when you think things could not get any worse for TNA, we have two more departures. First it was Drew Galloway, then it was Matt and Jeff Hardy, and now Mike Bennett and Maria are gone from TNA. The ship continues to sink and more people continue to abandon ship. What's going to happen this week on Thursday when TNA does their tapings? Will there be anybody left? Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding that. It's not good for TNA. It's definitely not a good sign when the hottest acts in the company are leaving. And if you asked me a couple months ago the top names in TNA, the top reasons to watch TNA, I would have said the Hardy Boys, the Broken Hardys, whatever you want to call them, Mike Bennett, Maria, and EC3. EC3's the one guy left. If he goes, what reason is there to watch TNA? What do you guys think about the TNA situation? Is this a sign that TNA is done for? Will they somehow manage to survive with all these names leaving? Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I will discuss some of the other things going on right now. Let's talk about SmackDown. Dylan says, how about that SmackDown beginning? Damn good stuff. What's going on with the WrestleMania match for the WWE title? That's what a lot of people are speculating about. I see the comments on here. Is it going to be a triple threat? What's going on? AJ Styles defeated Luke Harper. Shane McMahon had come out and restarted the match because AJ had pinned Harper with Harper's foot on the ropes. The match was restarted. Harper accidentally kicked Shane McMahon in the face. He was intending to hit AJ, and then AJ pinned Harper to win the match. But then at the end of the show, we had the big angle. We had this angle where Bray Wyatt came out, cut the promo, and then Randy Orton was seen at the Wyatt family compound, and Orton revealed that he was never part of Bray Wyatt's world, that it was all a big setup. Orton then proceeded to reveal that underneath where the compound was built was the final resting place of Sister Abigail, and then Randy Orton proceeded to set the compound on fire. They had this dramatic music. The whole segment reminded me a lot of the Broken Hardys skits in TNA. You have to think that that segment was inspired by what Matt and Jeff have been doing in TNA. What did you guys think of that final segment? I thought it was really silly. I did feel it was pretty over the top, but at the same time, I will say it was well executed. I think Orton and Wyatt did a very solid job with their performances. And overall, I did feel it was an effective segment. I mean, it was predictable. We knew Orton was going to turn at some point. But I did feel it was well done. What did you guys think of that final segment? It was great. I'm seeing some of the comments on here. Let me know what you thought about the segment and what you thought about SmackDown overall with the mixed tag team match being set up. What's going to happen now with AJ Styles? And where does Luke Harper go from here? That's what Kyle asks. Will Luke Harper just be thrown into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal? Is Shane McMahon going to screw AJ out of the title match, setting up AJ versus Shane? What's going to happen? Zach says the segment was neat, but hated the zooming in and out with the cameras. The last segment sounded pretty interesting. Alexander Hamilton said, I think it was long. Chris said Orton came off as a heel with Wyatt breaking down. I liked it though. It reminded me of like when Steve Austin would destroy The Rock's car and The Rock was freaking out, that sort of thing. I did not have a problem with that. I felt that it was fine the way it was. It didn't really come off to me like Orton was being a heel. Bray Wyatt, his character is a manipulator, and he got out-manipulated by Randy Orton. So, I liked it. The baby faces are supposed to outsmart the heels, and that's what Orton did. He set up Bray Wyatt. I thought it was well done. Justin says, I loved it. So continue to leave me your comments. Any other comments you have about WrestleMania, Triple Threat, AJ versus Randy versus Wyatt. That very well could happen, but it's really Orton versus Wyatt that's been the driving storyline. AJ being thrown into the mix really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, it would make for a better match, and everyone wants to see AJ in the WWE title match, but at the same time, it just doesn't really fit into the story very well. I suspect AJ's going to get screwed out of his title shot. Jeremy says, is TNA going to release Lashley next? Who knows at this point? Lashley is the world champion, but you never know. The Hardys were the tag team champions, and they're gone now, and apparently Anthem doesn't even want to have them appear on television and drop the titles. So what's going to happen with Bobby Lashley? Will he end up being gone? Who knows what's going to happen? We knew about the Hardys' contracts being up. I'm not sure when Lashley's deal is up, but we knew that the Hardys were coming to the end of their contracts in TNA. And apparently Mike Bennett and Maria were working on per-show deals, and it wasn't like a full-time contract or anything. That's another weird thing. On last week's Impact, we had that big wedding angle, which actually got a lot of positive reviews, and I thought it was one of the better Impact segments in a while, and Maria did a really good job, and now she's gone. So yet another talented performer who's gotten good reviews in TNA is gone from the company. What else do you guys want to discuss about the SmackDown show? I do want to add that I thought that Apollo Crews and Dolph Ziggler had a really solid chairs match. Actually, better than I was expecting. My expectations were pretty low for that, but it turned out to be pretty darn good. Do the Hardys go to WWE or stay in the Indies for creative control? I think they're going to end up in WWE. There's already the teases about it. Matt Hardy's been tweeting Sasha Banks, and I would be surprised if the Hardys do not end up in WWE. People are asking, will they be the Broken Hardys, or are they just going to go back to being the old Hardys again, as they were in WWE? I think it'll be some sort of in between, some sort of hybrid where they will be doing the broken gimmick, and Matt will do the delete. It'll be a mixture. I don't think it'll be quite as over the top as it was in TNA, but I think it'll be a mix of their WWE team act and their TNA act. That's what I'm expecting, at least. Seth says, so much for the Broken Hardys versus Wyatt's match. Well, Erick Rowan can always come back, and Bray could form a new Wyatt family, maybe even involve Eric Young and Sanity and make a new Wyatt family. So don't rule that out yet. That's still a possibility. That could very well happen at some point. Does Jeremy Borash join the Hardy Boys in WWE? That I would be surprised if that happens. Borash has been a fixture of TNA since the beginning. He's tight with Jeff Jarrett. That I would not expect to see happen. Dylan says, Broken Matt Hardy versus Looney Vince. Another comment here, they should come out as the regular team. The thing is, the Broken gimmick, it has such a cult following. If they just came back as the normal Hardy Boys, I think people would be disappointed. I think they need to implement at least some of the TNA act when they come back to WWE and somehow make that work. But, WWE's not going to reference TNA at all, so they got to come up with something to explain why the Hardys are a little bit different from the way they were last time they were seen in WWE. Calvin says, is Kurt Angle going to replace Mick Foley as the GM? That is a rumor going around right now, and it would not surprise me to see that happen, considering the fact that Foley is going to be having hip surgery, and The seeds are already being planted. The teases are already in place when it comes to Mick Foley no longer being the GM. One would think that Angle would be a great candidate to step in and take that spot and then potentially wrestle every now and then. A lot more comments here about Hardys versus Wyatt. Broken Matt looks so much like Sweeney Todd. Milkomania is coming back. We will finally see the Hardys face the Day of the New. Problem is, the New Day are not the tag team champions, but I would not be surprised to see the Hardys against Anderson and Gallows. And I talked about this on a predictions show that I did with Jeff Meacham and David Payne. We talked about the Hardys potentially coming in and facing the tag team champions. I could see Anderson and Gallows retaining at the pay-per-view and then maybe even facing the Hardys at WrestleMania. The Hardys are free agents by the time a lot of you will be watching this video on demand, and it's quite possible, if a deal is able to be reached, it's quite possible we will see them at WrestleMania. Somebody said that will be a great match, Hardys versus the Club. Will we see Taker beat Reigns at Mania? I would love to see a Buried Alive match, he says. I don't know about that one. I could see it going either way, but I could see Reigns being the guy to retire The Undertaker. I'd love to see Reigns turn heel and retire The Undertaker, but I would not be surprised if Reigns, as the character he's been, beating Undertaker and Undertaker passing the torch to Reigns and WWE going, la la la, can't hear anybody, and just, doing what they've been doing for all this time. Dylan Folk says, David Arquette and Vince Russo will save TNA, baby. At this point, I would say anything would be an improvement. I mean, hell, bring back Vince Russo. Would not surprise me if Jeff Jarrett did that anyways, but, I mean, at least the shows would be entertaining. I mean, they really have nothing left to lose at this point. They lost Spike TV, although if they ever wanted to try to get back with Spike TV, I don't think bringing back Russo would help them at all. What do you think about Cena mentioning Taker and not having control? That was interesting. That was a pretty heavy diss on The Miz. Cena saying that, if he was really manipulating everybody in WWE, he would be standing in the ring building up a match with The Undertaker instead of The Miz. Cena had quite the rebuttal when he had his chance to speak, and he talked about The Miz being a knockoff of Jericho, trying to rip off Jericho's charisma and stealing the figure 4. Cena was just savage. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Cena was clean-shaven, I would say he was Randy Savage with those comments. Those were some savage comments he made towards The Miz. If Balor has a match against Undertaker, would they need 20 minutes just for the entrances? Well, yeah, with Undertaker, it's 10-15 minutes, and with Balor, yeah, that would take up a half hour of WrestleMania time right there. Gabriel says, will Adam Cole end up in WWE before 2017 ends? That I'm not so sure about. I think he will end up in WWE at some point. I also think the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega one day will end up in WWE, but it's all about timing, and right now it's just not the right timing. WWE's got their guys they're focusing on. I think maybe a year or two down the line, when there's a better opportunity, when there's more open spots, I could see Adam Cole and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega coming to WWE. Salvatore says Jay Lethal. Who knows? I mean, Jay Lethal definitely can cut a good promo, and we've seen him show some charisma over the years. I remember that segment he did with Ric Flair. It was one of the most entertaining segments TNA ever did. I could see one day Jay Lethal possibly ending up in WWE. There's also talk about Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan apparently is coming back to weekly wrestling television. Does that mean WWE? Possibly TNA. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what's going on with that. I don't know if it's going to be WWE or not. I think it's more likely, if I had to make a bet, I would say TNA. Will WWE sign Mike Bennett? Again, I'm not sure if the timing is right for it, especially with WrestleMania and WWE focusing on all these other guys, but let's face it, in a couple months, Nakamura is probably going to end up on the main roster. Sooner than later, Bobby Roode is going to end up on the main roster. There will be some open spots in NXT. Mike Bennett going to NXT, that would not surprise me. Maybe even other guys that I mentioned earlier, like Adam Cole and I don't know about the Young Bucks. I get this feeling that if the Young Bucks came to WWE, they would want to go straight to the main roster. Probably the same thing with Kenny Omega, just because they've had so much success on the indies doing their own thing. I don't know. But there's certainly open spots in NXT. I think once Nakamura and Bobby Roode get called up, you're going to need to bring in some more fresh talent from the indies. And a lot of those names I mentioned. Zach says Will Ospreay, another guy. All these guys that I've mentioned, eventually, when the time is right, I think they will end up in WWE. Jeremy Dorset says, will WWE sign Jimmy King? Is that the guy from Ready to Rumble? I'm trying to remember. Am I just totally off on that? Oh yeah, Jimmy King's from Ready to Rumble. Yeah, you guys had me for a second there. I'm like, is that an indie guy or is that the guy from Ready to Rumble? Will we ever see Miss Elizabeth or Luna Vachon in the Hall of Fame? Don't know. I mean, I think Elizabeth should be in, but again, it's whatever WWE wants to do. I mean, we've seen just about anybody get inducted at this point. It just depends on how WWE feels, and a lot of it's politics. A lot of it is just timing again. You know, it's a timing thing. What about Jim Cornette and Vince Russo co-GMs on Raw? I'm not so sure about that, but how about Jim Cornette and Vince Russo having a debate in TNA? You know, that would get me tuning into Impact Wrestling just to see that long-awaited confrontation between Cornette and Russo. If Austin was to come back for one more match, who would you like to see him feud with? I wanted to see Austin versus Punk. Now, I mean, I'm not really sure. I would say I would rather Austin not come back at this point. I think the ship has sailed on that. Colin says, do you think Mike Bennett and Maria will head to WWE or New Japan Pro Wrestling? It depends. If there is an opportunity to go to WWE, I think Mike Bennett would definitely go there. But at this point, there's a lot of question marks. And, I would definitely bring in Mike Bennett. I think that he would definitely, put him in NXT first and then build him up and have him be the top star for a while. And then maybe the next year or so, have him come up on the main roster. I mean, WWE is going to need some new people in NXT once Nakamura and Bobby Roode get called up. They're going to need new headliners. What about an invasion of newly signed guys? Oh, Galloway's another guy people are asking, will he come back to WWE? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, he's got other opportunities, I'm sure, but never say never. Jinder Mahal came back. I mean, if they're going to bring back Jinder Mahal, why not bring back Drew Galloway? But then on the other hand, would they actually do anything with Drew Galloway, or would they just bring him back and have him stuck in mid-card hell again? I think people would want to see Galloway doing something more significant if he was going to be brought back. Do you see Goldberg staying longer than after Mania? Possibly. I mean, I really don't know. My gut feeling is that WrestleMania will be his last match. I think that he had his run, and it was a solid run. But to me, there's really no point in overstaying his welcome in WWE. I really don't think so, but if WWE thinks he's really worth the money and they pay him the big bucks to stick around, then I think he will do business. I think he will do whatever he can to make the most money possible. And if they give him the right offer, I think he'll definitely consider it, at least. So that'll wrap it up. I'm going to wrap things up for this special edition of NoDQ Live. Thank you guys for tuning in live. Again, if you missed part of the video, you can check out the on-demand version at youtube.com/AaronRiffNoDQ. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest. A really busy news day. A lot of interesting developments, both in WWE and TNA. NoDQ.com will keep you covered on the latest, and I will see you guys next time.